Are you planning to downsize and considering whether or not to move into a 55 and over community? Like any other major decision, there's a lot to consider here, a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Hi, I'm Mary Calamia, licensed real estate salesperson with North Shore Properties Realty, and today I'm going to try and give you some information to help you make your decision. I'm going to go over 5 pros and cons to living in a 55 and over community. And I'm not just speaking to you today as a real estate agent. I actually live in a 55 plus community right here in Suffolk County. So I'm also coming from a position of experience. I'm going to start by saying the pros and the cons are basically mirror images of one another. It's all a matter of personal preference, what you're looking for in a community and what you're looking for in a home. So when I talk to you about the pros, I'm going to be talking to you about the cons at the same time. So we're going to start with number 1, and that's the amenities. So people flock to 55 and over communities because of the amenities. Right there in your community, you might have a swimming pool, tennis courts, pickleball. You might have bocce courts. You might have a golf course. Some communities even have a bowling alley or an indoor pool. There's a whole lot of different options in different communities. And people like the idea of being able to join clubs and activities and just keep a very, very busy, active lifestyle. And that's obviously the number 1 attraction to some of these communities. On the other hand, if you move into a 55 and over community, the con or the downside to that is you may be paying for amenities that you're never going to use. Maybe you're not interested in sports or clubs, or maybe you work full-time and don't even have a lot of time to get involved. So you might be carrying a financial burden for amenities that you're never going to use. The other thing is if you are interested in specific amenities, let's say, for instance, you're a golfer. If you live in New York and you're living in a community and supporting a golf course, that course may not be available to you through the winter months or several months out of the year. So if you're an avid golfer and you want to be in a golf community and golf 12 months out of the year, that means you may have to move away from your kids and your grandkids. You might have to move some distance in order to find the amenities that you really like. So some people will say that they find that they're isolated from their families, and that makes the decision that much more difficult. So it's up to you. Again, this is all a matter of personal preference. Number 2, the low maintenance. So in a 55 and over, usually your landscaping is included. If it's not in the South, sometimes you have to pay for your landscaping, but usually the landscaping is included, snow removal. They take care of all of the grounds and all of the amenities. You don't have to lift a finger with most of that outside work. You can garden. Sometimes you have your own garden, but even that, if you're not interested in gardening, some of these communities you actually can just have the association even do your weeding and your planting, and you don't have to lift a finger. It varies from community to community, so of course you do your homework, but you don't have to lift a finger. It's great, right? The downside to that is, of course, most of these communities have an HOA, and with an HOA comes HOA fees. So even though you're not actually doing the work, you are paying for the work, and some of those fees can be very high in some communities. You really need to do your homework here when shopping for a 55 and over community. Make sure you look at the financial state of that community, because those HOA fees are a wild card. They can change over time, and there's really no limit on how high they can go. So that's the caveat on the amenities, the maintenance, and the HOA fees. In other parts of the country, not necessarily here in New York, but in other parts of the country, 55 and over communities will have lower taxes than the community at large around them. In New York, they can vary. It depends, again, on the community. You'd have to just take a look where you're looking to go and take a look at the tax structure. In my community, the taxes are all over the place. There's sometimes a difference of $4,000 or $5,000 from one house to the next per year. So, but the taxes can be lower and are typically lower in other parts of the country. So people move from a regular single family home into a 55 and over to get a benefit of lower taxes. But on the other hand, you're also getting a much smaller home, sometimes under 1,000 square feet. And that is, I guess, the beauty of downsizing is, you're going into something smaller, but in these 55 and over communities, you may only have 2 bedrooms. You may not have much storage. Again, you'd have to know the community you're going into, and you're going to have to look around and decide what you're going to leave behind, what furniture you may not be able to take with you. So, of course, that's the downside to any kind of downsizing, but particularly in these communities, the homes can tend to be very small, at least compared to what you're used to. Number 4, the upside to living in a 55 and over is you're living with all neighbors who are in the same life stage as you. A lot of people really enjoy that. It's like you're just with contemporaries and a lot of retirees or semi-retirees. That's not to say you don't have people who live there who are working full-time. You can, but you're all basically in the same stage of life or phase of life. And a lot of people do appreciate that. Now, on the other hand, that could be a downside. There are people who really enjoy just the sounds of children playing in the streets. And in many families, there is, for a variety of reasons, there is reason to have younger family members living with you. And in a 55 and over community, you may not be able to do that, or you may only be able to do that temporarily. And you would have to know the community that you're living in. So you could move to a 55 and over community and then find out that something has changed in your family and a younger family member needs to reside with you. They may not be able to do that. So that's a downside. And number 1, and here's the pro that's probably the biggest con for a lot of people, is the rules. These communities are governed by associations that have pages and pages of rules. Now, the pro side of that is some people really like that. They like to know that their neighbors are not going to be making all kinds of noise at all hours of the night. They like sometimes even the uniformity of pulling into a neighborhood where all of the homes look the same, and that there's maybe an association that makes sure there's nobody who's letting the landscaping go crazy or just, garbage all over the place. They like that consistency and uniformity. On the other hand, the rules can be very restrictive. And if you are somebody who likes to have complete autonomy over what happens on your property, you will not have that in a 55 and over community, and you could find yourself facing fines and fees that you weren't anticipating. And so you really need to know before you move into one of these communities whether or not you can live with the rules. So those are the 5 pros and cons that I came up with for living in a 55 and over community. I hope that this information helps you to weigh out your own decision with a little bit more information. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them right there. If you found this information helpful, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos on downsizing, moving out of state, or staying within New York State or Long Island, Suffolk County. I'm going to be doing map tours of the 55 and over communities here. So stick with me because there's going to be more information coming. If you want to speak to me personally, call me, text me, 631-835-1824, or you can email me at livinginsuffolkcountyny@gmail.com. In the meantime, I want to thank you for coming. Have a great time, and I will see you in the next video.